What's up, everybody? KleverKrok back for week 8 of the GTA Season 4. This week we have coach of the Because I'm Zubatman, Mr. Jester Friday 18.
Hola.
Hola. And we are going to go over the 4 matches of this week. And I think all of these matches were really close despite their differential. Um, that might be open for interpretation, but I think all of them were played pretty well. Obviously, we had some really good matchups this week and some surprising outcomes as well. So we'll go ahead and dive into it. So, David, do you want to talk about the first match between the Alakazam Apparitions and the Mucks and their team building and stuff?
Sure. Um, First thing that I see when I see team building, you look at one side, and if you're looking at a fire, water, grass setup with Sceptile and Azumarill and Heatran, that's a pretty good setup right there. You got special sweepers, physical sweepers. On the other side, the team, to me, does not look as dangerous. You've got um, Volcarona, who's a pretty potent special sweeper, and besides that, you got a physical sweeper in Aerodactyl, but you've really got no cores, and so I'd say that looking at the two, you've got one side that's definitely got an advantage heading into it. Now they lose that advantage pretty quickly when Malamar gets going, but that's just what I see, pre-turn one. What do you got?
So, one thing that I have noticed about the Alakazams this season is that they have a really, really good team, and they always I feel like a lot of their matches end up being very close. Unfortunately, I think, as I've said with a couple other teams and situations, I feel like this is an example of just running stuff from Smogon, and I hope I'm wrong, but I feel like um, some of the causes for loss in the Alakazam's side is because they aren't tuning their builds to the Pokemon they expect to be brought. Because although those stock sets from Smogon and Pokemon Showdown are great, they're not built for specific Pokemon. They're built for the general meta. And so if you run general stuff for specific Pokemon, it's not going to be as effective as running specific stuff for the Pokemon you expect to be there. And the Mucks have shown that they do a lot of team prep and really think about what they can do to throw their enemy off. And they also have really strong sweepers in Volcarona. And, even honestly, I'd say Krogunk has done really well this season, and even though that's not the case this time around, it didn't really have a time to shine. I would say it's just, that unfortunately, I will say that it does seem like a lot of I guess RNG is the proper way to say it. A lot of RNG happens against the Alakazams, but I would also say that that happens to most everyone, and I'd say that there's also, in my opinion, I feel like there have been matches this season that have ultimately cost me wins and losses, and that's just the way of the game. And there's ways to work around it, but that doesn't always mean that that that's how it will always be. So I think that both of these sides played really well. Again, it was very close, very, very, very close, but it ended up falling on the Muck side, I think, because they prepped for a specific team.
I would agree. I would agree. Um, Love seeing my boy Malamar out there doing work. Gotta say that. Um, I love that Pokemon. So, yep.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll say is that I wouldn't have kept Azumarill in and just attacking it when Malamar was just getting free setup.
Yeah.
He wasn't gaining anything by doing that, so I would have either switched out or set up with like a belly drum or something.
I was wondering if we had a choice band, but I thought a band would do more damage. Of course, you had the the huge amount of defense that had already been set up. But we had a choice band. Maybe if we had something like that was keeping him from using belly drum, because otherwise you had a sweep probably right then and there.
Yeah, what I would have done, just as out of personal preference, expecting after him using that first protect and doing that, I would have switched out on the next protect and gone into Thunderous to get free special damage on him, and then maybe switch back into a Azumarill and go for some attacks, because that would put more pressure on him, because Malamar doesn't have good defense unless it has an Assault Vest, which it clearly didn't. It had leftovers. So that could have really worked out as far as putting some pressure on the Malamar. And so I just feel like in a lot of situations there wasn't an understanding of how to control a situation or how to change it and how to identify what a situation is where you're being taken advantage of versus trying to manipulate it yourself.
Right. I would agree, but the only thing I'll say is, I mean, if he got a belly drum off with the stealth rocks up, I think he sweeps that team. So,
yeah.
If it were me personally, I'd have gone into a Azumarill as soon as possible, and then belly drum and Aqua Jet. That's it right there. You can play rough on the Malamar, and besides that, you just Aqua Jet.
Yeah, I agree.
Roserade's just not physically bulky enough to take that attack, even with the resistance. So, yeah.
So I think that match ended the way it was going to, in my opinion. So we'll go ahead and go on to the next match, which is between the Cincinnati Charizards and the Richmond Raikous. And this match was, at least for me, a highly anticipated one. The Charizards have done so well all season, and of course the Raikous have been nearly undefeated for the season, and they're also rivals. And so it was just going to be, a really intense match and a really close one. They both have really good teams. As far as the lineup goes, defensively, I see Chestnut being able to wall Landorus, which is pretty cool because Landorus is such a good Pokemon. I also see the Mega Sharpedo kind of getting walled by Volcanion. It has Crunch, but it still can be a problem for it if it switches in on like an Aqua Jet or a Waterfall, and then can turn around and either Will-O-Wisp or go for an Earth Power or something. So Sharpedo doesn't have the best lineup or matchup in this setup, in my opinion. Victini is a pretty good Pokemon here, I would say. And other than that, the Smeargle's pretty cool. Espeon for that magic bounce is pretty helpful as well. And then on the Raikous side, I see that, Scissor's kind of average in this matchup. Like, it's going to be able to put in some work, but it also has a few Pokemon that can wall it pretty good. But other than that, I think it was a fairly balanced match as far as the lineup goes. What do you have to add to that?
Yeah, so I don't know if that early crit matters much, but you're about to see a one-shot here with Victini on Landorus, and that's just a huge play early because you take a great Pokemon like Landorus and just lose it. Really interesting play here that worked out was leaving in Diancie on Mega Scizor. And so I don't know if that was just a crazy, super ballsy prediction or what, but man, it worked out.
Yeah, I actually talked to him. He said that he was planning to sack him off and risk that to get the rocks up.
Yeah.
And it ended up paying off.
Yeah, it paid off big time. Another thing that paid off pretty big here was the burn on Mega Sharpedo.
Yeah.
That Steam Eruption that changes the game in a big way. Otherwise, Latias just got one-shotted. So, yeah, early on, had some crazy plays that really just kind of changed the complexion. I didn't understand the use of glare on the Victini unless he was just planning to sack it off. But man, that's an awful potent sweeper to lose that early.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Those burns. Ugh.
right, but I don't think that one mattered.
No,
Flamethrower
it
was going to
didn't.
take care of business either way. This play here is really cool. Dark Void misses once. Um, the Boom Burst made you think that maybe he was bringing this thing to attack, and then he switched into using it as a transfer, which is awesome.
And
Once again, I would
terrifying.
yeah. Once again, I would recommend Spore over Dark Void. You got 100% accuracy, which cost him a turn. So,
Yeah, I think he
but from here
probably
on
was like
out,
Superior was the reason he didn't bring Spore.
that would make sense. But anyway, from here, that Espeon has gotten really, really nasty all of a sudden at 2.5 times special attack, and so I mean it was over at that point. But it was a heck of a game. Great match. Crazy. If you want to talk about random number generator, there's crazy random number generator on both sides,
Yeah.
and both sides reacted pretty well to it.
30%
So,
burn happened twice. Dark Void missing. I think that's a 15% chance.
yep,
This is our
yep,
game.
yep. It was awesome. So I don't know. I thought it was a great match overall.
Yeah, I agree. I think both sides played really well, and he ended up bringing something that I guess the Raikous didn't plan for, and I think that was what caused the game to end the way it did.
I agree.
All right, well, we'll go on to the next match, which is between Zubatman and Maple Grove Gengars. Do you want to share a little bit about the team building?
Sure. Um, as far as just looking at it straight up, I can tell you that I had absolutely no answer to Gastrodon. Um, I will say I have the benefit of knowing what was going through my head, and I prepped for the wrong team this week, so that was a little embarrassing. But yeah, so just looking at the matchups, he's got a lot of poison there, but I have nothing to make him pay for it. So, I mean, really, Chansey, looking at his team, is my saving grace because it walls basically everything there except Zangoose and the champ.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one thing I can say for this team. Was basically Chansey saved my butt. But yeah, looking at his team, the only thing I would say, I mean, he's got good special physical matchups there, but there's a special wall in Gastrodon, no real physical wall. And so I'm not sure. I don't know what the plan was. Maybe he was prepping for a different Pokemon, or a different set of Pokemon. But yeah, overall, I mean, he's bringing good Pokemon. There's just not a lot of defensive bulk there. I don't know. Feel free to disagree.
No, I agree. I think he has some special bulk there, even in Vileplume, but he doesn't have any physical bulk. Nothing can take a hit from Pinsir or Terrakion, or even Ambipom for that matter. And when, Gengar is your fastest Pokemon, and Ambipom outspeeds Gengar, that's kind of a problem. You just were able to get that pivot, like, on the switch out after getting rid of Gengar, and then you ended up being able to have control of the match after Gengar went down, in my opinion. So the match just ended the way it did, because, and I think this ultimately goes back to make sure that you at least draft one Pokemon that's physically defensive and one Pokemon that's especially defensive, because if you're missing something like that completely, it's very easy to exploit that. Just like it, on a lesser way, it's like really easy to exploit when somebody doesn't have a ground or an electric immunity or a ground immunity, You can spam Earthquake or you can spam Volt Switch, and it's like literally a win-win scenario. You can just throw out damage and get the Switch initiative as well. So, I don't know. I guess the thing is, I think he did as good as he could with what he had, but I think he needs to make sure that he drafts something that is balanced next time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. The one play that really changed the game in my favor was he did not go for that second bullet punch, which I thought was a mistake. I thought that second bullet punch would have taken care of Mega Pinsir a turn earlier, and it cost him a Pokemon. So
yeah.
Yep.
Chansey just ate up everything, as it always does.
It did. If you just bring special, Chansey's going to eat you alive.
Stupid fucking monster.
It kind of is. Physically, it's got a lot of problems, but special defense.
I mean, even physically, HP, with that Eviolite, it can still eat stuff up as long as it's not super effective.
Yeah.
That's the stupid part.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's why I drafted him.
Alright, well, we'll go ahead and go to the next match, which is also our last match, and this is between the New England Parasects and the Charmeleonaires. And so we've got the Charmeleonaires on the top, the New England Parasects on the bottom. Pretty much the same team that the Parasects have brought so far to every match, maybe except for Heracross has been brought to a few matches. Cloyster, in my opinion, rips through this team after Shell Smash.
Mm-hmm.
What else? I feel like Venusaur is a pretty good matchup despite the Togekiss. And Tyrantrum still kind of smashes everything too if given the opportunity. So I feel like as far as team comp goes, the Charmeleonaires have a team that should run through the Parasects. So I guess we'll go ahead and start the match, and you can just talk about how it went.
Sure. So we start this with the Sticky Web, which is just pretty standard for Galvantula. You get the switch out. Here, it was a dangerous switch out. There really wasn't any good switch yet because Mega Venusaur had not, Venusaur had not Mega Evolved yet. And so he goes into Tyrantrum thinking he's going to get a fire move, and instead he gets a fighting move, and Tyrantrum goes down first thing, which was just crazy. And so at this point, you've got Slowbro who's going to totally wall Cloyster there. Yep, sorry. And so you got the switch out, one burn on the Scald, which is, always a danger with Scald. This the Togekiss or Yoga Bliss or whatever he called it, packing Heal Bell on that was a huge play actually.
Yeah,
because Aromatisse was going to eat that thing up with Toxic otherwise, and he forced a switch because of the Heal Bell. So anyway, he's about to Shell Smash and then get brought down to his Sash. So at this point, the switch in with Slowbro is a good switch, but it also means that his Slowbro is about to take some massive damage. And so the Rock Blast comes very, very, very close to killing. But it doesn't, and so now we've lost Cloyster too.
Yeah.
So anyway,
something I'd like to add is Cloyster would have taken out the Togekiss with Rock Blast, so I would have just gone for the Rock Blast for the switch because it's neutral damage on anything, if not super effective on some.
Right.
And so it was just a win-win situation to go for that and get some pressure. So had he done that, it would have been enough to take out the Slowbro, and he would have gone for the sweep. And in my opinion, he would have finished the game. Well, actually, no. I take that back. I'm getting too far ahead. Infernape would have Mach Punch and would probably be able to take it out. But he still would have gotten rid of the Slowbro, which was a huge problem for the Charmeleoners.
Yep. So at that point, I think we also have a moment where Big Dan gets a little greedy, going for that 4 times on the sword stances with Cobalion. I think he had a huge setup even at 2 times, and at 3 times definitely. I think he could have made a huge dent, but he went for 4 times and ended up getting killed by priority, which I don't think happens otherwise. So anyway, at this point, he's still in it, even though he's way down 5-2, because that Mega Venusaur, if he can get past Togekiss, there's no answer for it. So we get the big play here, and he wishes into him, full health, Sludge Bomb coming. The switch outs really, at sacking Pokemon, I wasn't sure that was a really good idea. Didn't think the defog was a good idea by Gligar either. I really thought that Fire Blast on Infernape was good. Now he got the burn, which was that's a 10% chance. But packing special and physical was a really good move, because anything physical, Venusaur was just going to eat it up. And so anyway, we get at this point it's 2-2, and you get this huge crit too. Without the crit, I mean, honestly, Venusaur was going to take care of that. So I mean, it ended the way it did. Sometimes there are things you can't prepare for, but at the same time, it was a really good match by both sides. So some really good plays by both sides, and in the end, when both sides are playing at a really high level, sometimes it's decided by something small like that.
The struggle. Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. And as soon as he settles for Toxic, that's it.
Yeah, I would say that was a good prediction on the Parasect side on that Tyrantrum in the beginning. That was I did talk to him. He said he was predicting that, so that was a good move on his end. I would have not ran Electro Ball because it's not really the best move. I mean, the only way that it would be useful, and I don't even think it even at the best case scenario of you being way, way fast, I don't know what it caps out at as far as power, but I think Thunderbolt's still the better option as far as damage goes. I'm not sure if it would have changed anything in this match, but I definitely think that that's something that should change in the future. He did tell me that it was a Choice Scarf Raichu, and so he was trying to capitalize on that speed, working with the Electro Ball, but I'm not sure that I know there's a power cap, so I know that it wouldn't have been just insane damage, which is hard to know without looking that stuff up. So definitely don't run Electro Ball, because Thunderbolt is just going to be better flat damage in the future.
Yeah, the way it works is if the top out is actually 150 base power. But that works if your opponent is at less than 25% of your speed.
Yeah.
So that's just, that's really hard to achieve, even with a Scarf. 33 to 25%, you can get 120 base power. So, in my opinion, you're locking yourself in, and I don't think it's worth it. Whereas you could still get pretty good numbers on Thunderbolt and keep maybe your choices open, or run Specs, which would, be a huge boost. But yeah, if they're anything more than half your speed, you're only getting 60 base power out of it.
And that's not even as much as a Volt Switch, so.
Right. So it's definitely situational at best. But even, you could argue that there are situations where you're going to get great power out of it, but I think you limit your options way too much to do so.
I agree.
But with all that being said, it was a cool setup.
It was.
Um,
It was.
it was interesting to see Gligar in there, which, you know, pretty much nobody ever runs. So that's always
It's
cool when
in
somebody,
UU, so I don't know why people don't.
right? But I mean, it's just cool when somebody steps up and runs something that nobody else is running. You
Yeah,
never know what to predict. And that Gligar put in some work for him. It didn't
it
get any
did.
kills, but it did a lot of damage. Um, yeah, so it was a good matchup.
Yeah, I agree. So that's it as far as the matches goes. Like I said, these matches all turned out really well. Overall, I would say just to be sure to prep for specific Pokemon in the future for your opponent, and then also to consider what they might bring, because you might have this fantastic plan, but if you're not prepared for what they might do, and have ways to get around that, then your fantastic plan will never come to fruition. So I would say that's something for everybody to work towards, as well as just understand that, I think in all of these matches, RNG had a role in how it came out. And that's not to take away the loss or take away the wins from the victors who did win, but that is just to say that it does happen to everyone, and it's still like it still gets it still is dealt with, and it's just part of the game, and it keeps it interesting, and it's frustrating sometimes, but if it were to be any more, I guess, deterministic as opposed to random, it would be a lot more like a chess match, and which everybody likes chess, or everybody hates it, but Pokemon is fun because it's more creative and different, and it's not so specific on just how you play each turn. So being able to kind of meet in the middle like Pokemon does, I think is something that is actually a strength of it, whereas a lot of people would say that, oh, this game sucks because it's got too much RNG in it. And I know a lot of people in the competitive scene really get tired of Pokemon because of that. It's because they want their good predictions to always pay off, but at the end of the day, Pokemon's not just a game about battling. You know, even though the GTA is specifically focused on battling, that doesn't mean that Pokemon is all about battling. So we just got to keep that in mind. At the end of the day, it's not just about that. So
Well, there's luck in everything.
there is.
So the way I see it, you know, you make your plays and let the chips fall where they may. Hey, at the end of the game, it's still a Pokemon game. So remember, we might get frustrated with it, but it's never gonna, it never should impact your life. So
Yep. Well, that's it for this week. We've got a couple more weeks left. I think it goes to week 13, so we've got maybe 5 more weeks left before the tournament. So we still got a while. Check in next week for week 9. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching, guys. If y'all enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like, and if you want, subscribe for more videos. Hope to see y'all in the future, and thank you for watching.